Hello everyone, my name is Stonesy Boy and welcome back to Reading with Stonesy. Today we are reading pages 161 to 180. Last time, Billy thought he was a robot and started drinking oil. He got a tummy ache, and now it's time to read the next part. So, without further ado, let's begin. Aware that small beads of water had appeared in his forehead, Billy had to concentrate on his mechanical body that started a trek from his room to the kitchen. Instead of feeling strong like he usually did, he felt like he was going to fall over. He almost didn't make sure the chair was in the kitchen. Concentrating on putting eggs and sausage on a plate, Billy's mom didn't notice that he was malfunctioning. She didn't notice that until Billy had consumed, as he had programmed to, an entire plate full of eggs and sausage. At this point, the smell of sausage glitched up Billy's olfactory sensors, causing his senses to trigger a cascade of system failures. Billy's stomach parts and throat parts crashed together, and the eggs and sausage came back up, and they erupted in his open mouth and splashed over the floor. That day, Billy's mom took him to Parts and Service, although she called Parts and Service the hospital. Billy's memory banks brought up images of him being in the hospital. When he was 3, he put images that did not have any negative impact on him. He was a robot, so he wouldn't be upset by anything. Parts and Service had to just be another place to be. It was neither good or bad. Therefore, animatronic Billy was calm while he was giving up his complete system-wide check. The check determined when he was temporarily out of service. That was what his mom called sick. Billy didn't have to stay in Parts and Service for long, though. When he came home, he reasoned that he was fully reconfigured. He returned to his self-oiling routine. He thought it was a good routine. Maybe it wasn't, though. He went back to Parts and Service again the next day. In Parts and Service, a round-bellied, bald-headed animatronic repair person called Dr. Reynolds was able to detect the oil that Billy had been using. This oil, Dr. Reynolds, was a very bad idea. But I'm an animatronic, Billy objected. I must keep my joints lubricated. Dr. Reynolds had a conference with Billy's mom while Billy lay flat on his back in the bed and the metal railings on the side. He lay there, looked up at the white ceilings. Dr. Reynolds and Billy's mom whispered, but Billy could hear the word. He's in Dr. Lingsom's care, Billy's mom told Dr. Reynolds. And what does she say? Dr. Reynolds said. She says that we should play along with this fantasy. If we don't, it could cause a psychotic break. Billy ran the word psychotic break through his databases. He had no information about the word psychotic, but break had many meanings. He suspected that some of the systems were damaged in some way. This did not concern him. He trusted that Dr. Reynolds would repair him. A psychotic break will be the least of your problems if he keeps ingesting oil, Dr. Reynolds said. Well then, Billy's mom said, you need to tell him there's another way to oil his joints. Dr. Reynolds and Billy's mom started talking. They walked over to the bed. Sit up, Billy, Dr. Reynolds instructed. Billy sat up. Well, you want to keep your systems in good shape, don't you? Dr. Reynolds said. Good animatronics self-regulate, Billy said. Dr. Reynolds nodded. Then I need you to add some important information to your database. Are you ready for inputting? Billy nodded. He directed his unblinking gaze at Mr. Reynolds. The best oil for your particular kind of animatronic joints, Dr. Reynolds said, is olive oil. It's something that your mom can put in your food. And if you eat the food she cooks, your joints will function perfectly. Billy looked at his mom and Dr. Reynolds and back again. He concentrated on letting the information process. In spite of what he whispered in conversation he had heard, which was something his processor couldn't quite compute, his new data was consistent with Billy's goal in getting the best animatronic he could be. Because of this, Billy nodded once. I will comply. Billy remained in Parts and Service for another day, then his mom brought him home. He returned to being a good animatronic. Although Billy wasn't able to keep track of the time very well, he learned certain ways that came just once a year. So when these days came around, he knew a year had gone by. Christmas was one of these special days. Billy had a whole set of operating protocols for Christmas. They were protocols similar to summer fun protocols, but they were more specific. At Christmas time, Billy was required to help his parents hang strings of white lights and trees outside and help put bright hanging things on trees that was brought inside. Billy was also required to unwrap brightly wrapped boxes that were put under the tree. This was a simple task. He opened the boxes, looked at one inside, and said, thank you. Then he put the object aside before opening the next box. Animatronic Billy had 4 of these tree-centered days in his memory banks before the event occurred that required him to establish some new neural networks. The event was preceded by a conversation that his auditory sensors recorded as passing his parents' closed bedroom door on the way to the bathroom. Although animatronics generally had no need to pee or do any other things done in bathrooms, Billy was nothing but fully devoted to a child protocol. He was believed the most rare animatronic that he had ever developed an ability to pee, brush his teeth, and bathe like a normal child. The fact that the water involved in bathing didn't short out his circuits or rust the metal endoskeleton was a testament to the effectiveness of ingesting his mom's olive oil. Billy usually didn't allow his parents' conversation to use up his RAM, but the night he was heading to his bathroom, he felt compelled, for reasons he didn't understand, to stop and listen. Perhaps the word institution had triggered his attention. This was a word unfamiliar to him. Billy was, however, an animatronic with exceptional artificial intelligence. He could learn, and one of the things he learned that he was often out of his knowledge base by placing new words or experiences in the context of the surroundings. To that end, he listened to his mom and dad talk, so he discerned the meaning of institution. I'm not putting him in an institution, Billy's mom hissed right after Billy's dad spoke. He's my son. Everything we went through when he was 3, we have to leave him in intensive care? No, I'm not leaving him anywhere again. He's staying home with me. At what cost, Vera? You've been doing along with this insane fantasy for over 4 years. 4 years! It just can't go on. I think he'll give it up soon. Something thudded against the door. Billy's auditory senses told him a shoe hit the wood. We don't know that, Billy's dad shouted. Shh! Billy's mom said, he'll hear you. I don't care if he hears me, Billy dad yelled. I don't care about anything anymore. I can't take it, Vera. I can't. We have a freak for a son. We have no life. We can't go anywhere or do anything with him. All we can do is sit home and watch our little boy pretend to be a robot. That's not living. That's hell. Footsteps stomped across the floor behind the door. Billy strode as quickly as rigidly allowed to the bathroom. There, he closed the door. He heard his parents' door open. More thudding footsteps, then silence. Billy sat in the closed toilet seat and worked through what he had heard. His dad, it seemed, didn't like animatronics anymore. Oh well, that was okay. Billy didn't need his dad to like him. Billy was still a very good animatronic, whether his dad liked him or not. Billy's dad left 2 days after the conversation Billy heard. He left, and he didn't come back. Why did Dad leave? Billy asked when he watched his mom saute mushrooms and onions on olive oil. She was making spaghetti sauce. It was a red sauce that Billy thought resembled human blood. Billy wasn't convinced that eating was appropriate, but he had no data in which to reach a definite conclusion. Billy's mom, who had been crying off and on throughout the day, wiped a hand across her eyes. She stopped sauteing and came over to the table sitting next to Billy. She took Billy's hand. Billy, as a robot, had no need for physical touch. However, he found the feel of his mom's hand was agreeable in his tactile sensors. Therefore, he sat stiffly and let her hold his hand. Your dad doesn't understand, Billy, Billy's mom said. He thinks you can make yourself be something besides who you are. Billy cocked his head, running through his programming. It's not possible for a thing to not be a thing it is, he said. The thing is a thing. Billy's mom made a sharp laughing sound. One laugh. It was a bark of a big sea lion. Billy had seen sea lions on TV. They were part of the animal database, which was quite large. Billy's mom stood. She patted Billy on the top of the head. Spoken like a wise little animatronic, she said. I'm not just little as I was before, Billy said. He saw himself in the mirror every day. He just was much bigger than he used to be. He thought he looked even more like his dad now, and he used to. But that didn't matter anymore. His dad was gone. Billy just looked like himself, like Billy, the animatronic. That's true, Billy's mom said. You'll keep getting bigger. He started to turn to the stove, then turned back to the table. Billy? I am here, Billy answered. Have you ever heard of an animatronic growing before? Billy's mom's eyes were wet and intense. He stared so hard at Billy that, for a moment, he looked like an animatronic too. Billy ran the question through his processor, and the answer came quickly. No, I have not heard of a growing animatronic. Does that bother you? Billy's mom asked, her eyes shone even brighter. Billy got the idea that his mom wanted him to say something specific. He wasn't able to access the information and told him that it was. No, Billy said, I am an animatronic. I do not get bothered. And why is it important that there are no other animatronics like me? There are many things that exist that I have never heard of. I am unique. Billy's mom wiped her eyes again. She sighed. Yes, you are, she said. She returned to the stove and added a can of tomatoes to the mushrooms and onions. By the time Billy finished what was called 6th grade, he had concluded, based on the totality of the experience, observing the humans around him and integrating the information he read, that he can expand his banks and update the processes more effectively without the dubious help of teachers and school. Both of these things, he discovered, attempted to replace restrictions on how Billy took in the world, and limitations of the restrictions far outweighed any benefit he received from either teachers or school. Because Billy was an exceptional animatronic, his processors were able to integrate information from multiple sources. And one of these sources was books. He was able to upload massive amounts of information from books. This is why, on the first morning that he would have seen Billy's 7th grade, he announced to his mom, I will not go to school today. While his mom had unexpectedly happy about this, he rushed over to Billy, where he sat on the edge of the sleeping platform. The year before, he requested that his bed be replaced with a steel table. It's far better than a recharging platform for an animatronic. Why don't you want to go to school? Billy's mom asked. Are you feeling sick? Billy's cocked his head and attempted to work out. The idea of him being sick made his mom's eyes light up, and her mouth widened to a smile different than the small ones he usually saw on her face. Billy's processor informed him that his mom's expression indicated happiness. Billy's mom leaned toward him, looked intently into his eyes. What are you feeling, Billy? She asked. I do not feel, Billy answered. I am an animatronic. Billy's mom's smile disappeared. Her eyes moistened, and she rubbed him. Her shoulders lumped. I will not go to school, Billy told his mom, because the disadvantages of school outweigh the advantages. I'll add to my database by reading books. All I require from the rise to the library to acquire the books necessary for my continued learning. Billy's mom gazed at Billy for a long time. He gazed back at her. His visual senses processed what he saw. Billy had noted that he got bigger and his face looked more of that like an absent dad. His mom got smaller, more accurately narrower, and her face looked less like her face. Billy had in his memory banks an image of his mom's round and smooth face, her bright blue eyes, and her shiny and bouncy blonde hair. The round face, however, was no longer round. It was more oblong, and it revealed a bone structure under the mom's skin. The skin itself didn't seem like the fit bones. It sagged, folding into little pleats between her eyes, around her mouth, and into her jawline. The skin was a different color, too. Before, the skin would have been pinkish. Now it looked kind of gray. Billy's mom's eyes were different, too. Her eyes were lost some of their color, and they're now faded blue. And her hair had no shine. It didn't bounce either. It hung limply, like the kind of hair Billy had seen in a rag doll. The little girl who lived next door to the rag doll. The little girl didn't act like Billy. She once screamed at him because he got close to her. She'd have her doll eat him up. Billy was unable to process this. From what she knew of dolls, one could not consume him. Billy's mom interrupted his internal processing. She patted his thigh and stood. "I'll get your breakfast," she said. After breakfast, Billy's mom took him to the library. There, he checked out a stack of 8 books. This was the largest number of books he was allowed to take out at one time. "I'll be back in 2 days," Billy informed the large gray-haired librarian when she pushed a stack of books across the counter to him. The woman nodded several times. Then she ran to the other end of the counter. Billy determined that something had made her nervous. She didn't know what it was. Billy spent the rest of the first day of school sitting in the chair in his desk. He read all day until the processor informed him that it was time for dinner. When he received that cue, Billy stood and left the room. He started down the hall, heading toward the kitchen. As Billy walked his usual stiff-armed and stiff-legged way, he accessed a memory of how he walked and when the first time he became an animatronic. He had strode with too much force, so that every step he took stomped the ground and rattled everything in the room it was in. It was Dr. Lindstrom who had updated Billy's system, programming him for a quieter way to get around. "You see," she told him, with a demonstration of new ways to move. "You can move your metal arms and legs without putting your feet down with so much force." She walked across the room using a gait similar to Billy's. Billy's noted she placed her feet so her footfalls were silent and didn't make anything shake. Billy had mimicked Dr. Lindstrom and found the result satisfactory. He had walked quietly ever since. So now Billy approached the kitchen silently. He could hear his mom moving around in the small room, but she didn't hear him. As Billy got to the doorway before she stepped into Mom's room, he discerned the way she was talking. Because he knew no one was in the house besides him and his mom, Billy deduced that he was talking on her phone. Billy liked the phone. He had discovered that communicating via the phone was usually more effective. It did away with the complexity of processing multiple sensory cues at once. The phone required the only auditory processing. Because listening to his mom's phone conversation often resulted in updating Billy's systems, he did these things to other people that he didn't say to him. He stopped just outside the doorway to the kitchen. He focused on his mom's words. "I just don't know what to do," Billy's mom said. "You told me not to force him into anything, so I didn't make him go to school. But without other kids to emulate, how is he about to learn to be a normal boy?" Billy ran the question through his neutral networks. Did it mean that he was not effectively performing a function as his mom's son? Billy listened more. Perhaps the conversation would give him more information to add to his systems. No, I told you, I'm not putting him someplace. You said as long as he wasn't in danger to himself or anyone else, I could keep him at home. Billy knew he did not dangerous anyone, although robots could be programmed to be destructive. Billy wasn't one of those. He was designed to value human life. "Yes, I can take care of him," his mom said. "He's my son. You know I work from home, so I can be here for him every day. I'll do whatever he needs." Working from home, it was a concept Billy understood. His mom had inputted all the necessary information about that. She was, he told him, a financial advisor and investor. She managed people's money, and she also invested her own money. She did this to her computer in the office next to her bedroom. After his mom introduced Billy to the concept of investing, he checked out the books on the subject. The librarian had told him the books were too old for him. It was something Billy could process, so he ignored it. He read the books. He wasn't able to integrate all the information into his system, but he stored much of it. He continued to add a knowledge base. "Every child is different," Billy's mom was saying into the phone now. "Billy is Billy. I'm not going to force him to see himself differently than he does, even if that sees isn't normal." Billy was an animatronic, so he didn't feel. But when his mom spoke, he experienced a sensation that might have caused it similar to an emotion. He felt an unusual warmth in his area of his heart. His processors pumped him to step into the kitchen and approach his mom. When Billy's mom saw Billy, he quickly said goodbye and hung up the phone. Billy walked over to her and rigidly encircled her stick-like shoulders with his own strong arms. Billy's mom widened her eyes at him, and then she put her arms around him, and she cried. One of the special days that gave Billy the ability to mark the passing of the years was his birthday. A birthday, Billy understood, was the day that a human was born into the world. Because Billy was an animatronic, his birthday was more aptly called his creation day. He informed his mom that the fact the third year of his animatronic existence, Billy's dad had been living with Billy and his mom then, and said that Creation Day was absurd. Billy's mom said it was very clever, and from that point on, Billy had creation days. The number of Billy's accumulated creation days was the subject of the debate between Billy and his mom. He thought she created 5 years before the number of years Billy had tallied. He told him that she started as a baby and lived for 5 years before he became an animatronic. Billy was able to find these years in his memory banks, but the images had been those years were distorted, as if they belonged to some other animatronic, he concluded, after devoting much of his RAM to his issue, that the 5 years to this mom referred to were years during such Billy was been constructed, given that the memory informed him that he was complete in day he watched Freddy and Friends and announced his existence as an animatronic. Billy believed his creation was that day, not 5 years before, but when he retaliated the reasoning to his mom. She didn't add nothing and said, "We have to agree to disagree." Therefore, on Billy's 13th creation day, his mom celebrated his 18th creation day. From the human perspective, the 18th creation day was a milestone. Accordingly, Billy's mom informed him an elaborate celebratory ritual had included a Happy Creation Day banner, 18 silver helium balloons, and a variety of foods that fit Billy's animatronic dietary requirements, and a large cake, white with white frosting, per those animatronic requirements. Billy, his mom, and Dr. Livingston were the only participants in the ritual. They wore several party hats, several prints with the words Happy Creation Day, and they sat at the kitchen table eating a Creation Day meal. Billy, of course, acted no differently than usual. He never did. He was an animatronic. He didn't get excited about anything. His mom and Dr. Livingston didn't act excited either. They were quiet and sedate. Even when they sang usual Happy Creation Day song, neither Billy's mom nor Dr. Livingston seemed to enjoy the meal. Billy didn't enjoy it either. It was just that the system required. Therefore, he ingested it. It had taken 5 years of experimentation for Billy to discover the appropriate foods for his animatronic system, though during those years he ate whatever his mom put on his plate. Like or dislike didn't come into the issue, although his taste senses indicated some foods were better than others. After the 5 years testing foods, Billy concluded that the color had no place in animatronic food. The colors in food tended to overload the circuits. Therefore, he required the food to be white. White? Billy's mom had afternoon. He was informed of the conclusion. She'd been fixing him an usual snack of peanut butter and jelly sandwich. "I will consume the sandwich," Billy had told her, "because social convention dictates that what I eat what you have already prepared. However, from this point forward, I will require all white foods." "White," his mom repeated. "Animatronics do not efficiently digest color," Billy told his mom. His mom understood, walked to her refrigerator, and opened it. He spent several seconds staring at its contents. Then she did the same to his cabinets, then turned around. Tears ran down her cheeks. Billy was aware that tears indicated sadness. He therefore processed the potential reasoning from his mom's up to happiness. It took just a few seconds to conclude that she was unhappy because he didn't have the right foods. She would have to go out and buy them. Billy's mom did not go out and buy the foods, and for the last 8 years, Billy had eaten nothing but white foods, white flour-based breads, other baked goods, white rice, potatoes, white pasta, white sauces, usually cheese-based, grits, cooked but not brown, chicken, or fish, turkey, white mushrooms, onions, cauliflower, and apples, peeled, of course. Billy's mom had concern about these foods didn't give Billy enough fiber. He researched the subject and discovered that fiber was something that was needed by a human's digestive system. Because Billy's animatronic system was designed to be similar to a human's, Billy reasoned that he might require fiber too. He therefore asked his mom to purchase a powdered fiber supplement, white of course, which she dissolved in his water or his milk. The same year Billy reached conclusions about his diet, he settled on an appropriate wardrobe as well. Billy's clothing had been something of an issue for some time. He never thought the clothing his mom asked him to wear fit his animatronic presence. Yes, he knew that animatronics did wear costumes, but Billy wanted to be more autonomous animatronic. He required his own unique look. Since Billy knew himself and was made out of metal, he had an external appearance that didn't appear metallic. He reached a conclusion that various shades of silver and dark gray were required for his clothing. The lines of the clothing would be simple, resembling sleek, flat surfaces of metal. So, on Billy's 13th, 18th creation day, he and his mom and Dr. Livingston ate white pasta and white sauce and cauliflower with homemade ranch dressing. If it was homemade because the store-bought variety was too many flecks of green. Billy was satisfied with the meal. The fact that his mom and Dr. Livingston left over half of their small portions on the plates informed Billy that they found the meal less satisfying than he did. After the obligatory blowing out of candles on the cake and opening the presents, which included some additions to silver and gray wardrobe and a few laptop computer, his mom and would interface with his internal processors, Billy thanked his mom for Dr. Livingston for the Creation Day celebration, and he left the kitchen to return to his private space in the basement. As Billy reached the door, he opened to the long, steep flight of stairs leading to the space. He heard Dr. Livingston speak. "Don't you think enough is enough, Vera?" Dr. Livingston asked. "He's 18. It's time for him to go into the group home, the one I told you about, has a couple restraints with severe delusions. One has a lycanthropy and one, I'm not putting him in a home, Billy's mom said. This is his home. But you have given up so much, Dr. Livingstone said. You've lost your husband and your social life. You told me yourself that I'm your only remaining friend, and forgive me for being rude, but you don't look so good. You're losing your health, too. You think I don't know all that? Billy's mom said. I know, but he's my son. Billy always felt a boost of energy through his system when he heard his mom say, he's my son. He confirmed that he was still properly fulfilling his function in the animatronic designed to be his son. Once Billy's mom concluded her conversation with Dr. Lindstrom, Billy opened the door to his basement. He walked down the stairs to his space. Billy moved from a small bedroom to the larger, more secluded basement that occurred on the 12th Creation Day. That was the year he had been informed that his mom was an animatronic required isolation and darkness from optimal recharging. Minimal auditory input was needed as well. Billy's bedroom, which was the front of the house, was too near the street for quiet. Billy's auditory sensors were always registering the passage of cars, the barking of dogs, and the screaming of playing children. The basement, insulated by its thick cinder-block walls and the earth that surrounded them, muffled much of the exterior surrounds. In the basement, Billy and his network were given the silence necessary to shut down and reboot each day. When Billy set up his own personal charging service area in the basement, he'd done so with a placid tranquility in mind. Removing the old shag-brown carpeting is disposing of storage boxes and second-hand furniture. Billy had scrubbed the basement cement floor and its cinder-block walls. Both of these surfaces were naturally gray, so Billy didn't paint them. He moved his metal charging platform to the basement, and he requested that his mom buy a metal table before his information download station. There was his computer and the books he was currently reading were kept. After the 13th, 18th Creation Day celebration, he wanted to update his knowledge based on the included definition of lycanthropy. Not long after Billy's 13th, 18th Creation Day, on the morning that Billy's sensors informed that windy and rainy, Billy opened the door on the top of the basement stairs. He walked purposely as usual to the kitchen to await his morning hot cereal. When Billy left his charging station to the morning to go to the kitchen for his morning nourishment, he always heard his mom moving around in the room. He would see her clinking dishes, running water, closing cabinet doors. This morning, however, he didn't hear any of those things. Billy's auditory sensors reported him the sound of rain throwing to the roof, sound of the heavy sheets of rainwater being slapped against the living room, the windows. From the out of the street, he heard the shh of the car tires sluicing through the rain on the pavement, but these sounds were all the sensors were receiving. Billy, his systems flipping through the subfolders to find a potential reason for his mom's silence, came up with no explanation for what he was hearing, or not hearing. He therefore walked into the kitchen to gather some more data. Nothing in the kitchen, however, was useful. The kitchen looked as always did, yellow and white, neat and tidy. From this reading, Billy had concluded that his mom was a good housekeeper. He kept everything clean and orderly. Still seeking the data to explain the unusual morning, Billy opened the door to lead into the garage. The family car was in the garage. His mom was not. Billy went down the hall to his mom's room. As it always did during the day, the door in her bedroom stood open. When Billy looked in, he found the room empty, the bed made. Billy went to the hall to look for his mom's office. It, too, was organized as always. All books and files stored neatly in white shelves for white filling cabinets. And it, too, lacked his mom. I hate cliffhangers. Don't you? I do. Oh yeah, if you can't tell, this is recorded right after the next episode because I was actually very intrigued on what the heck the next part of the book is. And now I'm intrigued on what the heck the next part of the book is. How confusing. Anyways, next time we read, we are on the third and final change. Boom, boom, boom. Oops, I'm sorry. Boom. So it's going to be the next episode, and then the episode after the next episode. So in 2 episodes will be the finale of the book. So that's exciting. And if I would have kept the schedule, then we would be done with the book by, well, tomorrow, technically. So I hope you guys have a super fantastic, wonderful day. If you like, be efficient, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.